Well, hello, one and all. Welcome to Red Barn Radio. This evening, we continue forward in our 22nd year of broadcasting. My name is Bradford Becker, and tonight we welcome you to show number 860. Yeah!
Right.
Yeah! Yeah! Brock Lanzetti Ogawa is the moniker for a new trio whose members are widely known through their association with the jazz funk group Snarky Puppy. Zach Brock, who plays violin, Bob Lanzetti, who plays guitars, and Keita Ogawa on percussion, create sound in the spaces between jazz, folk, experimental, ambient groove, and world music. Their debut album, entitled Drawing Songs, was released on November 10, 2023 by Ground Up Music. Zach, Bob, and Keita all live in New York now and are making a run of shows from Indianapolis to Tokyo. We are indeed privileged to have them making us one of their stops. Welcome to the Red Barn stage, Zach Brock, Bob Lanzetti, and Keita Ogawa.
Thank you. Video.
Good evening and welcome to Red Barn Radio. Wherever in the world you're listening, welcome to Roots Music Southern Style. Thanks to WEKU, Red Barn Radio's official radio partner, NPR for Central and Eastern Kentucky. Listen online at weku.org. Red Barn Radio is supported by Visit Lex, Lexington, Kentucky's Convention and Visitors Bureau. More information on what Lexington has to offer is at visitlex.com. LexArts, Lexington, Kentucky's premier cultural development, advocacy, and fundraising organization, working for the development of a strong and vibrant arts community as a means of enhancing the quality of life in Central Kentucky. Follow Red Barn Radio on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Here's the host of Red Barn Radio to tell us more about tonight's performance.
Zach Brock playing violin up here and also shaking his booty. Loves skateboarding and high-octane coffee. He also comes from our very own Lexington, Kentucky. He studied at Northwestern and takes improvisation to a whole new level on the violin, not typically a member of the jazz instrument family. Bob Lanzetti, who plays guitar with this trio, is a graduate of the prestigious North Texas University Jazz program. He's a composer, he's an arranger, a teacher, who now lives in New York, where he can be available for the throngs of the biggest names in jazz who call upon his extraordinary skills on his favorite axes. Keita Ogawa started his music career on drum set at the age of 15. He decided later on to pursue his musical studies at the Berklee College of Music. It was while he was there that he developed a passion for Brazilian percussion. He now lives in New York and is one of the most versatile and sought-after percussion and drummers in the city. Since his arrival in America, Keita Ogawa has worked with some of the biggest names in modern music, from Yo-Yo Ma to the Maria Schneider Jazz Orchestra. Welcome to an evening of music and conversation with Brock, Lanzetti, Ogawa.
Thank you. That was a tune by Keita called Jandu, which, well, the name comes from a cross between the Afro-Peruvian Lando rhythm and the fact that Keita is from Japan. Felt compelled to begin it with the J, I guess. And we're going to continue with a tune of mine that, oh, by the way, we started off with a tune of Bob's. The first tune that you heard was a tune called Vases But No Flowers. And I guess since I'm the one talking, I'm going to just tell you that story, which is that at some point, Bob's girlfriend said, "I've got all these vases, but no flowers." And Bob thought, what's the first thing that Bob thought? He was like, oh, that's a good song title. Oh, yeah. And then he also got her some more flowers, too, so. Yes. Oh, yeah, acoustic. I better stick this in. We're going to transition to some more acoustic fare. We kind of switch back and forth in this band between a lot of different stuff. And we're going to play a tune that I wrote called Happy Place, which was written somewhere between 25,000 and 30,000 feet in the midst of extreme turbulence. This is Happy Place, and this is where I went during that time.
That was exciting.
Cool. Yeah, it was
All of it.
exciting while it happened, too.
Yeah, was it? Oh, that's good. Anything in particular that happened that we didn't notice, or?
Oh, I mean the turbulence.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Oh, got you. Up
But
there.
of course,
Yeah.
that's always exciting playing with these guys for sure.
So, since the three of you had, put a lot of time into Snarky Puppy and had a lot of success with it, it would seem sort of odd not to at least talk about it for a minute, and then we can get on to talking about you today, here and now. So I don't know if I really know exactly what Snarky Puppy music was, which is sort of how I feel about a lot of music I like. But what we do know is that all of you who were part of that were jazz trained. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit, Zach, about how Snarky Puppy came about recruiting you, or the three of you, or were you a package deal? Or did you
Definitely
meet
not.
there? Okay.
Definitely not. Actually, Bob is the longest running. He's the original guitar player of the band back when they were a college combo, not called Snarky Puppy. Yeah. So I'll let Bob start. We'll go in chronological
That sounds
order.
good.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, when we first started the band, Michael League, the bass player and band leader, he just wanted to make a record with some of his friends. So he asked us to do it, and we were all like, yeah, sure, He actually always did have the name Snarky Puppy, but it was, we just thought of it as just like Mike League solo record with a band name.
Now you're saying we. How many of you at the?
There was, I
front
think in the beginning there was 9.
Oh, okay. So it already started as a.
It already started big. I mean, there was more horns. I think there was, I think there might have been a tenor and an alto and a trombone and a trumpet. It was like way more like traditional, a little more traditional than it is now. for sure. And then there was 2 keyboard players, 2 guitars, drums, percussion, bass. So that was kind of like more or less the beginning lineup.
And how close was that to the time that you finished? That you graduated? You said you graduated from North Texas in
yeah.
2000.
I finished in 2004. The band actually started in 2004. I think when we first started doing things, it was right after I was already out of school.
Okay.
And I stuck around for like a year, and then I moved to New York. So, and then things, after I moved there, I was like, okay, well, I guess that's that. But then, like, Mike called me to make another record. And I was like, oh, wow, we're going to keep doing this.
Mike's still based down in Denton?
Well,
or
at
down
the
in
time,
Texas?
he was still in Texas.
Yeah.
Now he's in Spain.
Oh.
But,
All right.
but he was in New York for a long time as well.
Huh.
So that was kind of like the beginning, the first few years was kind of like that.
Yeah. Okay, and so did you have a part in Bob in recruiting new players, or at what point in time did he say, okay, we're 9, let's do 40?
Well, it was kind of really just almost by necessity. We had no money at the time, so we were playing gigs for nothing, and sometimes Mike wouldn't have enough money to fly me down to Texas from New York. So he would get someone maybe local to play guitar. Chris McQueen and myself were the guitar players in the beginning. And then around 2008, I think, we picked up Mark Lettieri, who was a guitar player in the area. So he was local to Texas at the time. So that's how. So people joined by just, they would get on a gig or two, and then if they sound great, they would end up sticking around forever. So that's kind of like how it kind of happened.
Uh-huh. And how about you, Zach? You want to pick it up from here? Or?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So my wife and I moved to New York. We moved to Brooklyn from Chicago, where I'd been for a really long time, since the 90s, really, when I was in college.
At Northwestern.
At Northwestern, yeah. And we moved to New York, I think officially in 2006. It's really blurry to me exactly. I would have to go to the old iCal and see exactly where it is. But I know that my first gigs with Snarky Puppy were actually in Chicago, because the way that I met Mike and I met these guys is that Mike sent me an email and he said, hi, my name is Michael League and I have a band called Snarky Puppy. We're based down in Denton, Texas, and we're trying to sort of get out of the area and tour around, and some friends of ours said that you were also, this and that, and a band player, a band leader who was also booking tours and stuff like that, and would you be interested in doing some gig swapping or recommending some places where we could play in Chicago, and then, you know, you could play with us. It was kind of like that. So I hooked up some contacts in the Chicago area, and they came through. They were sort of touring around there, Detroit, up, you know, playing a lot of colleges, Wisconsin and stuff like that. We played in Chicago, and I jumped in the van after that and went around and played some of the regional gigs. And that was sort of how it started. You know, then I didn't play with them probably for the rest of the year. And then I guess started playing with Snarky again in New York, probably right about the time that I moved there. So,
yeah. The first record you were on was Bring Us the Bright, right?
Bring Us the Bright,
Yeah.
which had already actually been tracked. It had already been tracked. So the first Snarky record I played on, they had laid down everything, but Mike brought me in to sort of lead a string quartet and then take a solo on a particular tune that had some space on it. And that was that. But then the first time that the first time I recorded with you guys live was We Like It Here.
Yeah.
Which, no, not We Like It Here. The one in Louisiana.
Oh, sorry.
Tell Your Friends, which was also Mark Lettieri's first Snarky record.
So when Michael first called you, Zach,
Yeah.
were you already familiar with what Snarky Puppy was doing?
Not at all.
You weren't. Okay. Did you at that point not really have your head in playing the kinds of music that you play now?
Oh no, I was definitely fully into it at that point.
You were.
I mean, the way actually that I got introduced to Mike was that the drummer in my band in Chicago was the first drummer in Snarky Puppy. He'd gone to school with these guys down in Denton. I had a band called the Coffee Achievers, came down here to Lexington many times. And so it was basically a recommendation of John Deidemeyer, the drummer, who was in my band, to Mike Leake. That's how it all happened.
All right. And Keita, what about your association with when did you become a pup?
So my situations. So I went to different school with these guys in Boston, and after I finished, I moved to New York City, and I think around 2008 or 9, I was touring different bands, and my mentor, I studied in Berkeley, Jamie Haddad, great percussion player. So I was in Cleveland, Ohio, middle of the tour, and Jamie is from Cleveland, and so I hit him up, hey, I'm in town, and he was in the studio doing some recording from a local singer-songwriter, and so he just asked me to bring one of the Brazilian tambourine to just record one tune in the studio. So I just stopped by, and Mike Leake was playing bass on a session. So that's how I met Mike Leake. And I think he was still in Texas, but I think right after he recorded the album Tell Your Friends. And so he just, told me that he has a band called Snarky Puppy. He gave me the CDs, and we kind of exchanged the contact, and we were kind of like, I was already in New York, and he was about to move in New York, and so we're just like, okay, let's play when you move to New York, and just give me a call. And then so he just started calling me once he moved to New York, and we start playing different bands and different singers and different gigs and stuff. And eventually he started calling me for the Snarky Puppy gig to play percussions, since the original percussion player Nate was still in Texas. As Bob says, I think he couldn't afford to fly him in, East Coast. So I was doing kind of fitting as a sub, and then I think I started. First time I recorded album called The Ground Up. That was the first album I played with the Snarky Puppy. And since then I'm kind of, I'm there.
You're right.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. I mean, it's it just sounds like in the course of doing what you do and some networking and whatnot, it just happened naturally. It wasn't like you got the call. It's like, honey, it's Snarky Puppy.
Right.
They're calling me.
Right.
So it's just like, you just found friends who were doing what you were doing and had an interest in doing something different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Once you're in the band, you're always in the band.
Yeah. I mean, there are many, many years where the band outnumbered the audience.
Yeah.
Many, I mean, the first time you go to a place, with a 9-10 piece band,
Yeah.
sometimes we would play for 3-4 people in the audience. And it's a very humbling experience.
At the venue.
Yeah.
Ha.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, so this music here, this project, is this your brainchild? Was this something the three of you connected about and said, "Hey, we need to do a trio that didn't have bass and keys. See if we can get some different sounds." Was it your baby? Can you talk about it?
No, it really was truly a collective venture, which it's sort of rare, that happens, at least, well, especially later on. That happens, I think, when you're a younger musician and nobody knows what they want to do. But for us, it was COVID lockdown, the music industry stopping, touring stopping, income zero. And at one point, well, now I'm living in South Orange, New Jersey currently, and Bob is from New Jersey. And we were all talking, and Bob and I decided at a certain point, it was sort of after things had opened up and then shut down again because the virus mutated or whatever, that we're like, okay, are you cool riding in a car with me? Okay, all right, that's okay. So maybe, and we were working with a booking agency that we had just started, that I had just started working with, and that also works with Snarky Puppy. So like, oh man, they're dying, they're not making any money. Everybody's really hurting. And we started playing, Bob and I were playing duo gigs in parking lots like 200 feet away from people in the winter. And like I think the first gig that we played,
Thanksgiving.
we met in my house, drove down to a suburb of Philadelphia and played in the parking lot of a brewery. But we had a great time because, we're friends and we have a vibe from being on the road and playing a lot of different gigs. And so we did a duo thing, and then when things opened up a little bit more and we were working with this booking agent, we were doing another string of duo gigs, and we were playing at a brewery that shall remain nameless, somewhere on the border of Indiana and Kentucky. And they'd booked us, and then came back after the contract had been signed, really, and everything. They were like, it's got to be, you've got to have drums, got to have a drummer, and it was like all about, it's like, got to have drums, got to have this and that. And so, then what do you do? Like the economics of it worked out for he and I to play duo, right? And we're driving there in our car. It's not like we're flying in or anything like that.
Right.
So now he wants to add drums. Well, if you add drums, you got to add bass, right? So now we're looking at dividing everything up into fours, and we just thought, man, that's not cool. Who's the one person that we could possibly call that we know that we love playing with, who could do some crazy stuff and make people forget that there was even a bass missing?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you take it from here.
I mean, that was it. I was like, if Keita's available and he could play some weird setup, half drums, half percussion, then maybe we can get away with it without having a bass, and it would be like an eclectic thing. So then we just did this one gig. Keita was available and was into it, so we came out and did that one gig, and we were just like, it just felt great. We were just like, I think this is a band. So it was kind of like out of necessity, again, like before, like I was saying with Snarky in the beginning, that it's just, it wasn't really conceived that way to not have bass. It just seemed to work, so we just kind of rolled with it.
Or it just seemed possible. It seems like you're all technically or proficient enough with technology that you can play with the pedals and get octave pedals going, and so you started playing bass notes earlier on your fiddle and trading some of that stuff off. And so, how cool, right? You get that bottom end and just doing what you're doing.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what we did, and now we're just sticking with it. I mean, we know so many amazing bass players, and things sound incredible with great bass players, of course, but there's definitely something to the challenge of working with this instrumentation. It makes things really fresh, really fresh. I can't, for instance, rely on maybe things that I might do in Snarky Puppy exactly in this band. I have to really, do other things, and I think everybody here in this group is dealing with that.
You mean you have to do more? I know you don't mean more is more, but it's more of a challenge. You have to work harder.
Yeah, I mean it's more of a, multifaceted, multi-role type thing. Whereas when we play in Snarky Puppy, anytime you play in a big band with a lot of people, you've got a certain thing that you do to make it work. But here we're kind of like shortstops. I don't even play baseball at all, so it's probably a terrible analogy.
I don't know. We're just rolling with
We're
that.
like a sweeper in soccer, right? It's like sometimes we're on offense, sometimes we're on defense. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if you could talk just a little bit about how you came to improvise on the instrument, and if you can recall that, I don't know, maybe a breakthrough when you went from sort of reciting stories in your improv to actually sort of telling stories in different ways and with embellishments that you felt really pulled out more detail in the story. Is that a complex question?
No, I love it. Yeah, I definitely can. I started like almost all violinists in the United States since the mid-'70s. I started with the Suzuki method, which is a different way than the traditional European method of learning the violin, where you're learning how to play the instrument, but also sheet music is involved right from the get-go. With the Suzuki method, the whole thing is known as the mother tongue approach. So we don't learn how to speak our first words by reading them in a book and learning grammar and stuff like that. We're just imitating our parents and imitating the voice of our mother. And so Dr. Suzuki, Shinichi Suzuki, had this concept of doing that with music. He was really a total genius in this area. In a certain way, it was very modern and also the most ancient, because it was taking classical music back to its most folk roots, but still you're doing melodies by Mozart and Beethoven and stuff like that. So I started as a Suzuki violin player, playing classical violin, but I grew up here in Lexington, also going to folk group with my mom and dad, and we had a little family band and stuff like that, and we were singing and playing different stuff, and I just had total freedom to do whatever. And the first memory that I have of getting really excited about improvisation, it definitely was not in the context of jazz or even blues or anything like that. It was being at folk group. We used to go to folk group with Gene Ritchie and Homer Ledford, and like that was totally, I didn't even think about that. Now I think of, wow, that's incredible that's what we were doing because those people were here. But yeah, we were just going over to somebody's house. They had the chairs around. Everybody's getting a turn at the melody and learning the songs. And I would get a chance to play the melody, and I started to, I'm sure that I was imitating other people is what I was doing. And there was something that I did where I changed a little thing in the melody on purpose, and I got a flicker of delight from somebody in that circle. And that was it. I was like, ooh, they liked it more than me just playing the straight melody. And I think it was that moment of the possibility of improvisation, taking something that everyone else is doing, but making it your own, putting your own voice into it, your own proclivities, that got me really excited. And that sent me on a search, that I learned the blues scale, changed my life. After that, connecting with jazz that was already happening in my house. My grandfather was Fred F. Moore, who owned Fred F. Moore Music Company.
Oh.
So Fred F. Moore, trombone player. My uncle, Fred Moore Jr., was the bass player. He taught me how to play Wild Thing and stuff like that.
Was that Moore's in Chevy Chase or
Yep.
on Southland?
Yes.
That was Chevy Chase.
Yep, Chevy Chase.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So that was it. I was just kind of, it was really actually a really natural way, but a weird
Right.
path.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how it started.
Neat. We are here with Brock Lanzetti Ogawa on Red Barn Radio. Let's get back to some music. What's your next song?
This next tune is it's a tune that I think was called Untitled Tune 12/14 2021 number 2 or something like that, up until the time that we recorded it. But I was having a great time with these gentlemen, as I always do. thinking about that movie, The Three Amigos, and I was like, oh, should I call it The Three Amigos? And I'm like, oh, that's really bad. So how can I capture that kind of a vibe? How about Los Caballeros? Probably also even is possibly worse. But this is Los Caballeros from our new album, Drawing Songs.
next?
Next song we have is a song by Keita. This is a song called Moro Morocco. Keita went to Morocco several years ago with Snarky Puppy, and he loved being there so much that he wanted to write a song called More Morocco. So, more in Japanese is Moro. Moro Morocco.
Well, we've got lots more music and conversation with Brock Lanzetti Ogawa coming up, but I would like to take a moment to remind listeners that Red Barn Radio live streams, both tonight's and on any Wednesday, remain available online for you to view at your convenience, along with the live audio streams, compliments of WGAD.net in Central New York. Don't miss a single episode of our program. Be sure to tell your friends and share what it is that you like about Red Barn Radio. Do it, or we'll sick Keita's herd of pigs on you. Will Overman, a great singer-songwriter from Virginia, is back to play the Red Barn stage after a couple of years have passed now. Will works hard and takes the business of music very seriously. I've heard Will say that 80% of his time is spent planning, promoting, reaching out so that he can make things work and have the ability to get around the region and share what it is that he does. Since we last saw Will, he is doing stuff. He's released a live EP and also a new single called Virginia is for Lovers. I'm looking forward to having Will back, and I know we'll have some great conversation. That's Will Overman next week in studio and on Red Barn Radio's live stream, 7 p.m. Eastern in North America. Now back to tonight's Red Barn Radio program. We welcome you live on our social media platforms, broadcasting from the Arts Place Performance Hall here in the horse capital of the world and Zach Brock's hometown, Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome back, Brock Lanzetti Ogawa.
Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having us. We're going to carry on now with a song of mine called Happy Song. We have 3 songs in this band with the word happy in them. And we had 2, so I was like, well, maybe we should have a 3 so we could have the trifecta. So I had the title before I had the song, which was actually, I think, the first time that ever happened for me. So, yeah, this is Happy Song. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
It is a happy one. Yeah.
It's a happy song.
It is a happy song. I understand why you called it that. Keita, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry if I'm making you uncomfortable staring at you so much while you're playing. I just am, I'm just enjoying it so much and getting into all the things going on over there.
Thank you.
And you make me think about this. One of my favorite things that was said by T-Bone Burnett, the producer T-Bone Burnett. He was asked, what is the magic that you do in the studio? And his answer was, well, I don't know what to tell you except that I think of every instrument as a percussion instrument in the studio. And I always loved that. And you made me think of that when you were over there sort of poking the porkers over there, which was just cool as could be. Yes, yeah, you have a lot of things going on there. And since we have limited time, I would love it if you would share with us and our viewing audience, our listening audience, some of the maybe the more unusual pieces of percussion that you have over there, and maybe tell us a little bit about them, how you happen to incorporate them in your kit.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So first of all, we don't have a bass player in this band, so my role is kind of like cover, bottom end, and also the groove drummer's role. So I wanted to cover pretty much kind of everything, but also I don't want to make it sound like a drum set, So I kind of keep it more, interesting sounds, unique sounds, but still wanted to keep kind of drum set approach I can play, So that's why I have kind of crazy, strange look kit right here. So basically, first of all, I'm sitting on the wood box. It's called cajon.
Sure.
I'm using as a bass drum, and also I play also with a hand. So that's and then I use a kick pedal kind of like backwards, and play with heel. So it's kind of strange way to play. But this, and then I have some other, I have regular snare, but instead of put on the snare on, I always put off snare, and it's like, without the snappy, but I put the metal things right here to make it kind of like, it's more like a different snare sounds, It's not like a usual snare sounds. It's almost kind of like a electronic or some kind of gate snare sounds I can make. And then I have a hi-hat cymbal, but I put some stuff on the top so I can make it a little bit more organic sounds when I play, Extra kind of, taste, extra sounds I can make it.
So are these things that you can, these things that you buy as they are, do you manufacture some of these things?
I made some of those. You can buy stuff. Actually, you can buy those stuff online. Yeah. Then you put this thing on a hi-hat or anywhere. And what about so then other thing I have is like a bongo, but you can play these bamboo stick. And then I have this little guy, flat drum. It's a Japanese drum, one hit. But also I can kind of put this little cymbal, so I can kind of alternate sounds. And I got metal, kind of cowbell, but it has like two springs on the bottom, so make it kind of reverb effect. And it's kind of cool if I play like, or knitting needle. You can make all these kind of different sounds. And then I have other gongs, bells, cymbal, like a little cymbals. And I got this little kind of like floor tom position that I have a Brazilian tambourine called the pandeiro. But I put the kind of thick skin and the microphone underneath to make it kind of, another kind of alternate bass drum sounds I can have it, And then I have another snare on my left side. I can kind of, change the pitches and stuff. So I combine all these sounds to,
Yeah.
in the music. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's very cool. So you've got like it's like your kitchen.
Yes.
I mean, you
Yeah,
got
I'm
all the
cooking
different
right here, yeah.
spices, all the different spices that you could want to make different
exactly.
dishes that you want to make. Have you touched every item in your
did.
kitchen
I did.
so far?
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then back to the pigs. That's I've just never seen that.
Oh,
done.
yeah,
It's how did you discover that?
Yeah, those pigs.
I beg your pardon.
It's just dog toy. But this is kind of like, I started doing like maybe 10 years ago. There's like famous composer, multi-instrumentalist from Brazil, Hermeto Pascoal. He's famous for doing this, using all the crazy stuff, And back in the day, he actually uses like the real animal. He brings the pigs and chickens in the studios and stuff. Yeah. And then it became harder to use a real animal. So he started using all this like a kind of rubber
Well, I'm sure
toys.
PETA probably got after him for striking.
Yeah,
No,
definitely. But so that all that this become kind of things in Brazil. So all the Brazilian percussion players actually use a lot these pig stuff. And then one of my band member, we saw the Hermeto's show, and he actually found the pig and on the road, and he gave it to me. That's kind of how I started, using pigs.
Yeah.
And then people love it, so I just kind of, once in a while, bring it.
All right. Yeah. Wow, that's great. All right.
Now it's the porchestra.
Oh, yeah,
very
orchestra.
nice. Very nice. I was just
Orchestra.
trying to come up with something clever. You did it for me. And then Bob Lanzetti, we haven't spoken much to you. We're always interested in learning about your mentors out there, and you learned from, among others, David Fusinski. Can you talk a little bit about David and sort of how that relationship came to be? And I mean, is there a story there?
I mean, a little bit of one. One of my first guitar teachers, a guy by the name of Chris Bono, introduced me to Dave. He was like a huge fan and friend of Fusinski's. And so I just got a couple lessons with him when I was like in high school, basically. But I loved the Screaming Headless Torsos. It was one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, right. I mean, he seems like a wild man.
Yeah, he's a wild man.
Yeah.
He plays crazy stuff. So I was like, when I was younger, when I first started getting into jazz, I was really into Fusinski, Wayne Krantz, and Bill Frisell. Those are my three guys. So Fuse, I only got to study with a few times, but it was great. And I loved how he fused no pun intended.
Yes, right.
How he fused like jazz and like punk rock and funk and stuff. It was like a really interesting mix of things. Someone who was like equally into Bad Brains as they were Mingus, Charles Mingus or something.
Yeah.
It was like a really unique combination to me at the time.
Do you teach much remotely?
I do some.
Yeah, it seems like remote teaching really doesn't have that. The grades aren't that great on remote teaching in education. We kind of frown down on it.
Well, yeah, it's definitely harder because you can't like really play together.
Right.
But you can talk about concepts and stuff. Sometimes I'll have students like record something for me, especially if it's a new student who I've never heard before, because I'm not gonna be able to really hear them in the lesson. So then I might like, if they don't have questions or something, I might give them some pointers of things that I might have noticed.
Yeah, it seems also that what would be lacking there is that opportunity to speak with young people about their body, for instance. About those important things.
Yeah.
I watch all of you guys, and there's just not a lot of tension in your playing. I mean, you guys are just very calm, relaxed. That's the way it appears, and it just seems it would be hard to address some of those postural things.
Yeah, it can be. But to be honest with you, I don't really have any like regular students that I see often. It's sort of just like occasionally someone will hit me up, and then we'll do like a lesson or two.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So there was something else I wanted to ask you. How occasionally you'll hear a cover band guitar break that dances around. just close enough to that sort of signature phrase that the anticipation sort of builds and it's kind of exciting, versus the guy who just sort of plays the exact phrase the way it was played before.
Right.
Do you play jazz standards?
Yeah.
At all? Some with some groups. I guess I was wondering, when you play jazz standards, how do you keep certain like signature phrases or signature licks from sort of feeding the meme? Like from being, I don't know, just done again.
It's a good question. Well, I mean, I think like basically, I'm into, like all of us, we're all into tons of different kinds of music. So I think, I studied jazz, I studied bebop, I had lessons with several great teachers, and I tried to get into the vocabulary and all of that, and then I sort of like let all that go and then tried to let all of these other influences in as well. So I think it just becomes like a mix of everything. It all comes through like my filter.
Yeah.
So like, I'm really into Jimi Hendrix and Charlie Parker and, Webern. So like, 20th century classical music and electronic music and jazz and everything else all come out naturally, hopefully, in the best case scenario, they come out in some sort of way.
Yeah, but I would imagine that there are some bands you might play with who like don't want to hear all that stuff. They don't want to hear it. They just want to hear like, just please channel the hero we're dealing with here.
I mean, and that's a special skill. I don't really do gigs like that too often,
Yeah,
to be honest.
that's what I was going to ask you about, yeah.
I mean, I do occasionally, especially if it's like, like if I do like a wedding or something, I'm not going to play like, super out electronic music, vibe. But, so yeah, I mean, sometimes you kind of have to do that. But I think generally though, just if you want to be an artist, I think trying to let all of that come out naturally without trying to force it into any one box is what you want to try and do anyway.
Yeah, right. So, it's funny, we were thinking about this the other day, how rock bands who do covers, they call them cover bands. And so is there the sort of something similar to that in jazz? Like, do you actually call jazz
I think so.
bands cover bands?
I feel that.
Are
like
there
that's
jazz
true.
cover bands?
I feel like if I'm playing a gig and they want me to sound like Joe Pass or something, which I can't do, first of all. But to me, that's like a cover gig.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really like in the spirit of jazz, really, to me.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like, I mean, it's not really a cover gig, but it's sort of in the similar vein.
I get it. Yeah. Right. Makes sense. Right. Well, let's get back to some more music with these guys, Brock, Lanzetti, Ogawa. Well, there are many people to thank for our broadcast. First, Brock Lanzetti Ogawa, our guest on tonight's program. We want to thank all of you for listening to our webcast, watching us on social media, and those listening to us on our growing network of Red Barn stations and media worldwide. Thanks to WEKU, Red Barn's premier radio partner, Central and Eastern Kentucky's radio news leader. You can listen online at weku.org. It's your chance to hear more great live music from Red Barn Radio and WEKU. That's NPR for Central and Eastern Kentucky. Those of you here in the Central Kentucky area, you have to be sure to check out Red Barn TV. It's our weekly program of music, now on ABC 36 WTVQ. Red Barn Radio comes to you from our home, the Arts Place Performance Hall here in downtown Lexington, Kentucky. Our website has updates and further information on our guests in our program. We are on the web at redbarnradio.com. And now, before we close out tonight's program, what if we bring back Brock Lanzetti Ogawa for one more tune? We sound good? Yeah. All right. Ready? Well, that's all for our show for this week. You can see and hear Red Barn Radio worldwide as we stream live on the web on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern in North America. And it is always terrific to hear from all of you who listen to Red Barn Radio's archive performances on your favorite streaming platforms. Speaking of you listeners, please, before, during, or after you enjoy Red Barn Radio, take just a moment to engage with us. Your comments, your sharing, and certainly your choice to subscribe to our newsletter matters so much to us. It's going to keep us growing and continuing our mission to bring roots music, Southern style, to your neck of the woods and beyond. And now we bid you good night. Let's stick together, let's appreciate each other, and let's join up again next week for another great evening of music and conversation on Red Barn Radio. I'm Bradford Beckert. See you next time.